some people complain, like, God gave you the Bible, but there's nothing in there that's useful.
What Swedenborg put into the world at least gives you the building blocks of what Jesus said. This is how the Old Testament in particular is all about Jesus. Yeah, I didn't even think of that in our earlier conversation, but what clearer evidence could you have that there's some connection between Jesus and the Old Testament? He was the embodiment of the Old Testament. He was the Old Testament made flesh.
But what are you even talking about? Jesus, that's not true, because the Old Testament is like Noah made a boat because it was raining and the world got covered. That's not about Jesus. That's got nothing to do with Jesus. You're talking about like people crossed the Red Sea. What's that got to? What are you talking about? The Word was made flesh. Without what Swedenborg gives right here, and it's nonsensical to say the Word was made flesh. What does Jesus have to do with the nuances of how you build the tabernacle, or how many concubines did Solomon have?
Right.
I'm just saying, man.
Yeah.
Without this, but what he's saying is all those things. It seems like, hey, God, do you care about me? Why are you telling me who begat who? Why are you telling me that I shouldn't harvest this thing alongside that thing? Or you tell me about a vineyard owner. Me, I'm here. And this is Swedenborg saying everything in there is showing you who God is. And who God is matters because that shows you what life is. This has to do with everything else he lists there, faith, the church, everything that is the most valuable and precious to you coming out of wherever you are into the happiness of heaven. That's what this whole thing is about. And I'm going to show you how. And in case people feel like that's not, Jesus never said that the Old Testament has secrets about him in it. In Luke 24, remember this is the road to Emmaus. It says, he said to them, how foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. That's kind of harsh, but did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets. So Moses is like the days of creation.
Yeah.
And all the prophets, which would be all the Psalms and everything, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked to us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?
Opened them up.
What we're saying is the stuff that now you can get in these books by Swedenborg is the same stuff that Jesus opened to those disciples on the road to Emmaus.
Yeah, that's right. That story has often frustrated me in the past because I was like, but what did he say? He said all this amazing stuff. Well, how did Noah's Ark relate? How did all these stories, what David and Goliath, what was that? How did that relate to him? It's just like, oh, you fools, don't you understand this whole book is about me? And then explains the whole thing to him for 3 hours while he's walking down the road to Emmaus. And their hearts are burning. They're just like amazed, like, oh yeah, it made sense to them. But me, I want to be on the road to Emmaus. I want to hear that.
Hey guys, it's so great that your heart was burning. What did he say to you?
Yeah, I know.
You wrote down the other stuff, the Sermon on the Mount. Nobody had a pen. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And then he appears a little bit later to the disciples, does the same thing to them, and we still don't get to hear it.
because we couldn't bear it then.
Yeah.
But we can bear it now.
And I think that's exactly, in a way, what Swedenborg put into the world was, at least gives you the building blocks of what Jesus said. This is what he said. This is how the Old Testament in particular is all about Jesus.
So if this is true, we have this incredible, clear-eyed dispensation from Jesus. Now the scriptures are open to everyone. The whole world, this should be taking the world by storm.
Yeah.
This is so, and yet it's not. It's probably is like the first you're hearing of it is on this show. Why is that? You're about to find out why. Because it is not that fun to learn. Like the actual process that Swedenborg goes through, labors through in Secrets of Heaven, in Revelation Unveiled, it's just not that photogenic. And it usually doesn't leap off the page at you.
No.
It does by now to me after I've spent forever in it, but it doesn't sweep you off your feet.
No, that's right. Yeah, and it's a lot more than 3 hours. It takes a lot more than 3 hours to read everything Swedenborg wrote.
We're about to do. Nobody is going to find this fun. This next part here, even though we're going to open the scriptures to you right now, and you're going to be like, okay, when is it? Can I skip this part? We're going to start. Let's do the process that he gives for the internal meaning. This is with one of the more controversial stories in the entire Bible, which is Abraham being told to sacrifice his son.
Yes.
Which seems like a ghastly story on the surface.
Yeah, and at the last second, for those of you who don't know the story, God sort of relents and lets him substitute this ram whose horns are caught in the thicket to take the place of Isaac. But Isaac, it's a horrifying story. It's Isaac sort of saying, "But Father, where's the animal?"
Oh my gosh!
And we've got everything else we need. And a lot of people have felt that story has something to do with Jesus. But the thing is that in the Jesus story, he gets killed. In the Isaac story, he doesn't get killed. And it's a ram. And so but people sort of intuit that it's related in some way.
Yeah.
But the bottom line doesn't really work out with that interpretation because the wrong person dies when you have the actual story.
And the Isaac story is a problem because it seems to be teaching a really grotesque moral lesson, which is that God is saying, "I'm going to test your loyalty to me, Abraham.
Yeah.
Would you, like I know you're one of my people, but would you kill your son for me? And I'm going to test and see if you would do it. I don't make you go through with it, but I wanted to know, how is that moral?"
And by the way, this is a son that Abraham waited an extraordinary length of time to get.
Yeah.
This was the main thing he wanted out of life and couldn't get, and it never happened. Then when his old age, he finally has the son that he's always dreamed of having. And then God says, "Well, I just want you to do one thing for me. Just kill that kid, okay?" Well, is that so much to ask?
And think about Isaac, who's his own human being, if we're just looking at the literal sense. And if he were to have a conversation with God afterwards, and God's like, "Don't worry, I wasn't really gonna get you killed. I just want to see if your dad would have killed you." He would have, by the way. Anywho.
So he did good.
That ain't no teaching from God. What is this about? Here's what it's about. Are you ready? Secrets of Heaven 2764. In its inner meaning, this chapter speaks of the Lord, so Jesus' heaviest, deepest trials, by which he united his human nature with his divine nature. It also talks about the way in which that union is the means of salvation for people who make up the Lord's spiritual church. So,
wow. So he's saying this is psychology. This is not about animal sacrifice. It's not primarily about a test of whether Abraham's really on board or not or something like that. This is a test. This is a psychological challenge that Jesus went through internally. And part of how you get that to work is that, surprise, Jesus is Abraham. Like he has an Abraham part and an Isaac part. These are just parts.
Yes.
He has a ram part, these are parts within Jesus.
All of this is telling you about who God is. And not only who God is, but what he went through as Jesus. Because what he went through there is the big version of what each of us go through in our lives. It says here that the people in the spiritual truth. Jesus had these intense struggles, dark nights of the soul, hero's journey kind of stuff that he went through, which you go through too. And by seeing how he aced it, not only you can know how you're supposed to do it, you can take comfort knowing that he's been there. You can model yourself out. Suddenly this has everything to do with you. It says in Secrets of Heaven 2768, as you alluded to, Abraham represents the Lord. That whatever it says about Abraham is telling you about Jesus. The Lord had severe, profound trials. Going on in the story, it says, "And he said, 'Please take your son, your only one whom you love, Isaac, and go your way to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, the one that I say to you.'" That's not good. He shouldn't do that in the literal sense. What's it saying in the internal sense? He said, quote, "Please take your son," symbolizes the divine rationality brought forth by the Lord. Your only one whom you love means the only such rationality in all creation through which he would save the human race. Isaac symbolizes its character. Go your way to the land of Moriah symbolizes a situation of trial and conditions then, and offer him there as a burnt offering means that he would consecrate this rationality to his divine side. On one of the mountains symbolizes divine love. I told you that this is boring and you're not going to like it. You're not going to understand what it's talking about. Sorry, I'm just saying.
It's so. I'm afraid I've been immersed in this as you have, and
So because we're like,
I
wow,
love
that's
what he just
cool.
said. Yeah, it was so great.
Okay, tell people,
Because-
what did he just say?
Well, partly what it makes me think of is that Abraham means that divine love, and then over time, so this divine love, and what the essence of the divine love is this desire to save the entire human race, and not save in kind of a schlocky little, oh, I'm saved, but really rescue us from negative thoughts and feelings, really improve our lives, turn us into angel beings and so on.
Take us out of hell and into heaven.
Wants to do that whole thing. And then that love, Abraham, needs to have a rationality, has to have an understanding of who knows how to, we don't even know how to save ourselves. We think, I've got a great idea. Oh, it wrecked the whole universe,
Hey,
we're not very
it's a little
good at
close
this
to
thing.
home here.
Right. So that gives birth, I think it's awesome where it said that rationale was the only one in the universe, like only one person ever understood, which was Jesus, the human being, with the divine soul inside, gives birth to this rationality. And now this thing is going to be tested, that Isaac is going to be tested and consecrated in order to help people.
And you have your own mini version of that inside of you, it's actually the Lord's, but it starts to show up at some point in your life where there's this, hey, life can be better than this. Like I want to try to follow God and get out of whatever hell of selfishness and materialism I'm in and get to heaven. Like God is kind of calling you there, wants to save you, but he can't lead you along unless you have some concepts, unless you have some rationality that can to show you the steps to get there. So in your life, you come across certain ideas and things, and you start to understand them to the point where you can act on them. That's this same thing happening in you.
It also helps me understand why, because if you look at the story just from a sort of coldly rational perspective, you'd say, why not kill him in the front yard? Why do you have to go all the way, across the planet to Mount Moriah or whatever it is? And, it's unnecessary. But because it's a journey in us and a journey in Jesus, in what Jesus went through, that journey is meaningful. And it's a journey to love. Like what's going to handle this situation, how this is going to work is if it's on a mountain of love. If that's where this little procedure can happen, where you get these priorities straight and so on.
Yeah, it's not about killing. It's not about loyalty. This is actually about spiritual growth. This is about the change of heart. If some people complain, like God gave you the Bible, but there's nothing in there that's useful.
Yes, absolutely.
There's nothing in there that's
not
useful.
a single thing.
There's barely, every once in a while there's something, but mostly it's not. If God was really going to give you divine revelation, wouldn't he tell you, like, here's all the details of how to be?
Right.
These are all the details of how to be. And right now, like we have a very, even you and I who've been immersed in this forever, we have a very bare bones, skeletal understanding of this.
Absolutely.
Like think about somebody, like some sixth graders with a cellular biology textbook that barely understand. Like sure, we're there, but it's even that is so much more than you'd think you could get out of this story.
Yeah.
Of Isaac.
That's right.
Okay, let's do a little bit more unpacking this. So, and if anyone wants to do this on your own, there's only like 16 volumes of this.
That's right.
That Swedenborg wrote. So you're not going to run out. Secrets of Heaven 2776. The Lord consecrated himself to his divine side, which is to say that he made his humanity one with his divinity by fighting and winning in his times of trial. So that's the process by which it goes. And the same thing happens in you. The way that you go from a state of hell to a state of heaven is through times of trial. So this is when things are difficult in your life, and when you're stretched to your limits, and when you need God and you have to ask for help. That's when that becomes real to you. The truths become real to you.
And so the emotional intensity in the story is absolutely true. I mean, it's high stakes, and there's a tension, and the outcome is not known, but it's not about the thing that you think it's about.